Welcome everyone. Again, we're here to talk to some of our experts in the market at our Between the Lines live webinar. My name is Vanessa Rader. I'm the Head of Research at Ray White. And today we have a bit of a special edition Between the Lines live, as we have one of our New Zealand members coming to talk to us. So Stefan Powney, welcome. Stefan is from Ray White Commercial in Auckland, and he is a Land Sales Director. So welcome.
No, excited to be here. Thank you.
Great. Well, quite a different one to talk about because you work in a kind of, like, while you're part of the commercial business, probably something a little bit different. We do have special projects business up in Queensland who operate a lot in that kind of land space.
Yes.
Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about what kind of area in the market you operate in and what's going on in your space there in Auckland.
Absolutely. So I guess if you look at our business, it's kind of a purely land-focused team for myself and the team that I run. And I guess when you look at the parts of the market we're involved in, it would start with kind of your maybe 800 square metre lots for your smaller developers, and then we range right the way up to large future urban blocks doing private plan changes, etc. So yeah, it's a busy market. It's been an interesting time out there. But we are starting to see a little bit more improvements with, I guess, the activity in the market. Not necessarily a crazy increase in pricing or anything like that, but we are definitely seeing a lot more developers come back to the market, which is exciting.
Yeah, so I'm assuming developers are the main people that are buying these parcels, or are we seeing kind of small investors getting in there trying to develop new things? So you're having a bit of is it the kind of the clients that you always deal with, or we're seeing some new entrants emerge?
Yeah, no, great question. Well, I guess when we look at the larger blocks, we've got some pretty consistent clients in that sense. You know, the standard mum and dad aren't going out there and buying a $100 million block of land. But I guess when you look at some of the smaller ones, we're seeing a bit more first-time developers come back to the market. When you had the change in market, late 2021, early 2022.
It's been a bit of a tough market
It's been an interesting one.
for New Zealand.
Correct. Yeah, so when you saw that change in market, I guess there was a bit of hesitancy for anyone looking to get into a project because there was so much uncertainty around what was going to happen going forward, where prices were going, everything in that sense. So I guess on the flip side of that now, there's a bit more of a consensus out there that the confidence is coming back. People are maybe, a little bit more likely to get those pre-sales. So we are seeing the first-time developers, start to get involved again.
I suppose pre-sales are they're key for the funding of these projects. So you talked about from the kind of the small 800 square metres. So what are we doing on a small 800 square metres? What sort of development is that? Is that like a townhouse type development or?
Correct.
Yep.
So if you look at our standard ones, so I guess in New Zealand we've got in the standard residential zones, you've got a mixed housing suburban, mixed housing urban, and then the terrace house and apartment building zone. So the urban ones is kind of maybe the most common that our developers like to use. And for an 800 square metre one, somewhere between 7 to 8 units. That's kind of the standard number. If you really, really push it, you may be able to get 9, but that's always a bit of a battle.
Planning becomes a little bit of an issue if you try to push the envelope a little bit too much.
Yeah, entirely.
And also the construction costs. Like construction costs have been high, particularly in Australia, but it's around the world. These kind of raw material costs has caused a bit of an issue.
Completely.
So that whole viability becomes quite difficult, I suppose, in this space. But yeah, we're starting to see some kind of rebound, a bit more activity going on. So that's a good news story for the Auckland market.
Completely. And I guess on our side, like we're hearing good things about construction pricing at the moment because of, the change in market and everything in that sense. There's a bit more competitiveness, I guess, with builders and all of that. So we are finding those prices are coming back a little bit, not drastically, but it all helps make the equation stack a little bit better.
So when you're dealing with some of your clients, what are they looking for? Like, what is the ultimate demand? Is it location based, or is it kind of size of lot, or is it? What are they looking for? Is it like very price point driven? Like you obviously have developers that can only spend up to a certain amount of money. Are they looking quite location, and they're being quite sensitive, making sure they're in either kind of growth corridors, new areas, public transport? What's kind of the overwhelming feedback that you get, or is it a mixture of all of those things?
I would say if you look at each client has a different preference and a different kind of target of what they're trying to achieve with their projects. The standard stuff is they want a flat site. They need no water risk on site, services accessible. That I think that's been a really big part for us in recent time.
Yes.
Getting people to provide access to services if it's in the neighbours has been a little bit tricky. But we're finding ways to help that along. But I guess each client, like some of ours, we've got one particular client and he just loves North Shore. He pre-sells them super easy. He's got a great relationship with, I guess, the council there. So I guess it's a recipe that he knows how to run through, I guess. So that particular client loves that area. We've got others who will only build in the premium areas like Remuera, St Heliers, etc. So I'd say it's more of an individual rather than a blanket across the board. The standard criteria is the same for a good site, but
Yes.
the rest is up to them, I guess.
So I suppose those kind of more affluent areas, if you like, that kind of infill is it's premium. It's hard to come across those sites. They're kind of obviously built up sort of areas.
Completely.
So you're achieving some pretty outstanding results for some of these kind of parcels.
Yeah, we're absolutely trying to. It's a bit of a battle, but we're getting there. But I guess when you look at our business as well, I guess Auckland, it is quite a large area. We try to cover it quite comprehensively, but we've segmented our business into separate territories. That way, for those areas that are those premium locations, we've got one person who's responsible for that. So you get the clients who are, repeating in those areas. They've got one point of contact. The owners, they find a lot of value in that as well. So for us, it's been quite helpful segmenting the business in that sense. It just means we can do a bit better of a job, I guess.
So I suppose in those inner areas, you're looking at those kind of unit type developments like you mentioned. But in a kind of a larger land parcels, are you looking at is it land subdivisions or is it communities, or how does it work?
Yeah, so I guess, to give you an example, some of the deals we've been working on recently, a lot of those larger ones have been land subdivision. So they will cut it up into, 500, 1,000 lots or something along those lines.
Big.
It's a big there's lots of bigger projects happening. And then I guess the target at the moment is trying to make it affordable to a degree. So there's been a focus around getting, a 250 square metre site.
That was going to be my thing. How small are these lot sizes getting? Because we know across, particularly Queensland and New South Wales, those lots are getting pretty little. So it's not dissimilar.
No, I'd say it's similar in that sense. So what they're doing is about 250 squares is kind of the smallest you'll get for a single level standalone. And what they do is a zero lot line. So obviously a fire rated wall. That way you can kind of push it up a little bit closer to the boundary. And it just helps, I guess, get the right level of property in these developments so they can offer them at reasonable pricing.
But I suppose importantly is that whole mix. Like you can't have them all like that. There's going to be a mix of, because you have a mix of buyers who want different size homes and kind of different land parcels. But you don't operate in that final part. You're just looking at the actual the original land parcel purchase, is that right? But do you help the developer through the process? Because any of these things can take an awful long time to happen. It's not a quickly put in a DA and you get these kind of applications and approvals really quickly. So it is a long journey. So what part do you guys play in that role for the developer?
Yeah, entirely. So I guess from the beginning of the process, we'll obviously be dealing with the landowners, trying to get them through the process of actually going to the market, which is always good. Then I guess the next step, when we're working with the developers, they all have their preferred consultants. So when it comes to just getting them the right information, giving them the tools to obviously get their due diligence done, that's kind of where we assist. But obviously they've got their own consultants who do the heavy lifting in that sense.
Yes.
But we help guide through that process, which is nice.
And given that you're aligned with kind of our residential part of the business, like Ray White, obviously a brand that we all know across New Zealand and in Australia, do we get involved in that kind of last piece of it, like either the unit or the block of land?
Yeah, entirely. So I guess our part of the process is at the beginning. So from that part of the process to the end, I guess there's kind of a handover process. Once it gets to, I guess, the development side and the sale of lots or the sale of new properties, that's where we'll hand over to our projects team. Okay. And our projects team, we've been quite lucky in that sense that we can collaborate with such a wide group. Yeah. Obviously, the residential network is pretty fantastic. Yes. So that definitely helps.
Yeah, that's great. So we talked about developers being obviously your key client. Are we seeing developers coming from... It's a bit difficult to investing in New Zealand sort of property, but are you seeing kind of international players or people coming further afield looking to speculate in the market, or is it a bit too difficult?
Yeah, look, I guess getting in New Zealand and purchasing, there's definitely a few barriers to entry if you aren't a citizen there.
Yes.
So we noticed there's a little bit of it happening, but it has been a little bit less in recent time. But I think at the moment there's, if you can get through that overseas investment approval, there's definitely some good buying opportunities out there.
So where do you think this market's going to go? We're feeling optimistic about the state of the residential market more broadly. So do you think the demand is going to centre on any particular lot sizes that you're dealing with or locations? What's your pick?
Yeah, so I guess when you look at our side, I feel pretty optimistic going forward, because for the developers, the values that they can achieve is tied to what people can pay based on interest rates and all of that fun stuff. So I think at the moment we're feeling pretty optimistic going forward. I think the market, we're seeing the improvement. We're seeing the large groups start to commit again in the market. That's usually a pretty good sign for us.
Certainly a good sign. When you see those coming into the market, that just kind of means that, the time is right and the values have aligned in order for that kind of development to take place. Because the feasibility of these projects is, it has to stack up, doesn't
Completely.
it? Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So, is there any other areas of the market? You only operate in the Auckland market, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, okay. I guess we want to be kind of a specialist in that sense. So we want to be a specialist in the area, and then also what we do as well. So that's really important to us to kind of stick to one core focus. It just means we have a clear path and we can do a better job.
And the mixes that you're seeing on some of these like large lots you mentioned, cutting it up into 500 or 1,000 lots.
Yeah. Can
you walk us through what that might look like? You mentioned those kind of small lots that have like the single level homes that are kind of pushed up near each other. Is there a secret sauce or a special recipe for those kind of large lots, and how do you kind of see that breakup of either lot size or building type? Because I'm assuming that while it's just those kind of single homes, but some sort of townhome or a unit, if permissible, would also are they on those large lots?
So I guess you want to get a bit of a variety. Every person in the market has a different preference, a different budget. So when you're doing such a large project, you kind of need to separate the product that you have. You have to have some townhouses, you have to have, some small standalones, you have to have some larger standalones as well. That's really the only way you're going to get a project to work for the market. I guess, it is pretty wide what people will look at. Some people are really just wanting to get into the market and they will grab a 2-bedroom townhouse, and that's a really big deal to them. It's fantastic. On the other hand, some people are maybe on their 4th or 5th home and they do want something a little bit larger, a little bit more space, maybe space for a pool even.
Yes.
So all of those things become important as well.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly an interesting part of the market, and it's so great that we're starting to see kind of some green shoots, if you like, in terms of the New Zealand market and in terms of that like land space. And so it was really great to have you here today. And I'm sure that we just had a short one today, but we thought we would just kind of throw in an additional Between the Lines Live, just in case anyone's interested in the New Zealand land market. And it's so great to have you here, Stefan.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
Bye.